First of all, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Geronimo Jackson. My last video that you guys seen on a Recap Lost Videos channel, he had the artist and the song title down, so he got a shout out. Go out, check out his page. He's a Lost fan. Well, you can tell that by his name. So, anyways, check out his channel. And subscribe. Episode 9, titled Ab Aeterno. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right or not. That's Latin. So anyways, we start off the episode, like back in, I believe, season 5, we've seen part of this already. Jacob's going to see Lana in the hospital. She looks like she's burned up. He tells her that, you know, this is what you've been preparing for. He wants her to go and protect the candidates. We get a little more of that backstory here. Alright, so Jacob tells Lana, after they've got to the temple, what does she do next? And she says, you gotta talk to Ricardo. And we switch back to the island when they're on the beach. Lana asks Richard, well, what do we do? And Ricardo does this funny laugh. He's like, like, I don't know what to do. Alright, so if I don't touch on everything in this episode, don't be upset with me. It ran 6 minutes longer than a usual Lost episode, and there was a lot to cover in this episode. I mean, we had a ton of answers in this episode. Richard says, you know, you want to know a secret? And it's like, and he says, Richard says that, he tells Jack, he's like, you're dead. All of this, you're in hell. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, this can't be right. I'm like, they're not going to leave Lost as just an island where all the dead people go, purgatory and all that crap. We already know that's not true, so don't worry about that. I just think right now that Richard is in a broken state and that he's just telling stuff or saying stuff out loud that just doesn't make sense, and he's in a world of his own. It's been the funny line for the night. Oh, this should be interesting. Yes, and Hurley finally steps up to the plate. He tells Jack, I'm sorry, this has nothing to do with you. Alright, so Ben says to Frank Lapidus that I met him when he was 12 years old. And Ben says something about, you know, he doesn't age. And Frank is like, well, how do you think that happened? And then there's the question that all of us has been asking. And then, boom, what do we flash into? A flash backwards. Or we go into a flashback, and this is the first flashback of the season. This whole episode is dedicated to Richard Alpert. We get a lot of his story. This is awesome. Let's go into it. All right, guys. So Richard is not an Egyptian, as far as I can tell. It's 1867. He's riding on horseback to go and visit his wife, or come back to his wife. Who knows? And anyways, she's very, very sick. So he rushes off to go get the doctor to bring him back and see what's the matter with his wife. And this doctor, he's a real asshole. Alright, so Richard accidentally kills the doctor, which I was really, really happy for because, like I said, this guy wasn't very nice. After Richard looks in his hand, he's got the glass tube of, it looks like sand to me. So, is it from the island? I kind of felt bad for Richard. I've always liked Richard. His wife's dead. Not a whole lot he can do about it. But it lands him in jail. Alright, so the father comes and talks to Richard in his prison cell. And Richard wants forgiveness, but the priest will not give him forgiveness unless he has to do his penance for his sin. And he says, yes, whatever it takes. But he doesn't have time because he's going to be hung tomorrow. But how convenient that Richard doesn't age for about 150 years. So I think he's going to do his time. So the next part's really cool. The guy comes up, talk to Richard. They pull Richard out and they want to know if he speaks English, and he doesn't for a minute, but then he hears, you know, something about English, and pulling back, and the guy says that you got stronger hands, where did you work at? And he's like, you know, in the fields. And he's like, you want to go to the New World? And he's like, yes, you know. And so he pays the priest, the father, and he says he's now property of Magnus Hanso. This is really, really cool, guys. So finally, the Black Rock on the sea. I was like, yes! And they're floating along the waves, and there's a big storm. And then out of the side and the cracks in the ship, they can see the devil, which is the statue that we've been waiting to see how it got tore down. The ship hits a wave. I mean, that wave had to be, what, 300 feet, 400 feet high? I mean, that statue was freaking huge. And it hit it and knocked it over. And finally we get an answer. So Richard was a slave. So the Black Rock didn't land up on the island because of time travel or anything. It's because there was a huge wave that carried it onto the island because of the storm. Alright, so I got a really big question for you guys. If the statue was knocked down in 1867, 1868, okay, whatever year it was, how was the statue still there in 1977, but it wasn't there in 2007 or 2004? When we see the foot with the 4 toes, please leave me a comment down below, because that's really bugging me. Really bugging me. Alright, so I was wondering how all the skeletons got down in the bottom of that ship. Now I know, because the captain was killing everybody. And I was wondering how Richard got saved. I really felt bad for Richard in this episode. He's been through a lot of shit. Imagine being chained up like he was. I mean, he's been in there for a little while, I would say. So old Smokey's working on Richard, isn't he? He shows up as his wife, which is dead, and tries to convince him to kill Jacob. He's a very, very smart man. We know why Richard says to Flock, "You," because he recognized him from the 1800s when he said, "It's nice to see you out of them chains." Alright, so first of all, Jacob has some mad fighting skills. Jacob, he's not stupid, and Richard just wants to know where his wife is. And Jacob said, "Did your wife come on a ship?" "No, she's dead." And Jacob says, "So why are you asking me?" And it's true, because if you're dead, you're dead. Except for the flash sideways. Alright, so Jacob starts dunking Richard's head inside of the ocean. And Richard's like, "Stop!" He's like, "Why should I stop? You're dead." And he's like, "Because I want to live." So he pulls him out and he's like, "It's the first sensible thing you said." So, by what I'm getting, Jacob, after hundreds of years of being on the island, if not thousands, of trying to teach Man in Black a lesson, he finally realized after what Richard says, if you don't step in, the Man in Black will. So Richard is now basically Jacob's apprentice. Consigliere, whatever you want to call it, if you're a Godfather fan. Jacob tells him, "You can have whatever you want." He chooses his wife, but of course Jacob can't do that. Dead is dead. But then he wants to not go to hell. And of course Jacob can't do that either. So what does Richard choose? Eternal life. And Richard hands out his hand onto his shoulder, and there you go. Richard, over 150 some years old. Alright, so Richard wants to go back to Man in Black, and he's calling out to him. He's like, "Is this deal still good?" And nobody shows up. But who does show up? Hurley. And then Hurley says that your wife sent me and that she wants to talk to you. Hurley tells Richard everything that she has to say, but Hurley has one more thing to tell Richard at the end. So if Richard doesn't stop the Man in Black from leaving the island, we all go to hell. Alright guys, so the final scene is Jacob and Man in Black talking. Man in Black tells Jacob, "Now you know why I want to kill you, because you won't let me leave the island." And I don't understand where their relationship began, because I want to know why he's keeping him on the island and why he is so bad. I can't believe that one person can be so bad that you won't let him leave another place. I mean, it's not like he's locked him up in chains or anything. It's just he won't let him leave the island. But I hope we get some more answers, guys. Next week is a Jin and Son centric episode. You can see my poster in the background. Hope you guys like that. Let me know what you guys think is going to happen next week and what's going on with Jacob and Man in Black. I mean, are they brothers? Are they, some kind of friends that got locked on the island and they become unfriends. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Talk to you guys next week. Thanks.